Hello and welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I am your host, Andy, and just as Survivor did a swap this week, so did we. We swapped our regular host, John, and we swapped Matt out of the live blog this week so he can join us for the podcast. Matt, great to have you aboard.
Great to be here. Happy to rejoin the podcast, but in video form.
Yes. Yeah, it had been a while, and often how we do it is you talk to John and, oh, look at that. I screw this up every fifth time.
What happened?
Well, we sound great so far. Sorry, the YouTube just started on delay there. That was embarrassing. But hey, if you watch this show for our professionalism, I have to question your judgment. But yeah, no, it was good to have you back. Usually I'm talking to Emily, and I grew tired of that, so I wanted to mix it up here.
This way we can talk over each other, just like you talk over John, and the few times I'm on, I talk over John as well.
This is going to be a real battle. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yes.
But we'll get into the episode, because we got new tribes.
Woo!
Yeah, and I think that led to what I feel was a pretty good episode, and I think a lot of people are satisfied with it. And I think the reason for that, if you had to pin it down to one thing, is we no longer have to see a Gen X tribe.
Yeah, because the Gen X tribe was really boring, but with interesting results. It's just, we didn't want to see the process that went into their tribal councils. Their tribal councils were interesting, and now we remove them from each other, and now we can just have them be among other interesting people.
Yeah, I think their day-to-day in the Gen X tribe was just, trying to keep things easy and dull. And frankly, I get that. I am also old, and I don't seek drama in my life at all. That's a young person thing. That's why, like teen shows are exciting, or, maybe why adults want to read, kids, teen books about vampires or whatever. Because it's like, oh, they're so dramatic and all of that. But frankly, I don't want any drama in my life. I just want to go home and relax. And I think that was like what the tribes were like until, David would do something crazy. But now, you sprinkle them amongst a few tribes. Frankly, never that many in any of the tribes. And I think we're going to have a better season as a result.
Right, because before this, the only thing that would happen that was interesting on the Gen X tribe was David doing something crazy or spazzing out about something or just basically being David at the moment.
Yeah, or Ken taking off his shirt, obviously. That led to a lot of entertainment as well. We're not going to lose that, though.
Right. Ken will still take off his shirt. Ken will still be beautiful, beautiful Ken.
Honestly, I'm not sure if his shirt made the journey. I can't really recall what kind of shirt he wears, but, why would I pay attention to that? I think we're going to...
Ken's shirt, it's probably he took it off once, and then one of the women stole it, because why would they ever want him to put that back on? And they just hit it.
That's right. Or maybe the cyclone did it. Yeah, there's a lot of theories. Every people out there, if you have an answer to what happened to Ken's shirt, let us know. We are the podcast. We're on it. Two dudes talking about Ken and his shirt. So yeah, I think we're going to spend a lot of time just discussing three new tribes, because we got different dynamics to go through, and I think I don't think there's a dud, at least nothing that leaps off the page. That's probably because the Millennial tribe was really interesting, so they had a lot of interest to spread around. Let's start with the new tribe, Green. I get they call it Ikabula, I think.
I think that's right, but I've been calling it the Green Tribe in my head.
Sure, I mean, I don't know how often I ever refer to tribes by their name. I guess when they become infamous, that'd be a thing. But I would say Ikabula is a fun thing to say, so maybe that might break the trend. So this one we've got Brett, Hannah, Jay, Michaela, Sunday, and Will. They gave them one extra person and no shelter. Actually, before we go into that, what did you think of the going to 2 to 3 and the extra person and all that?
I thought the extra person was a good fix because, they have to build up their camp again. Giving them an extra person gives them an extra hand. I also thought that tribe came off, actually as a pretty strong, cohesive tribe. But you were asking if there's, a dud from an entertainment factor. The only reason this one isn't is because it got Michaela, who's the most interesting person in the game right now. Like, she can single-handedly carry a tribe for just entertainment factor.
So, yeah, that's actually a good point, because Brett and Sunday have shown nothing so far.
Right.
Will is whatever. Hannah is a spaz that, could cause interest if she does anything. Right. Jay is fine, but yeah, it's all Michaela.
Right.
So actually, let's start with Michaela, because she had a bit of an episode. I think.
Yeah, no, she had a great episode. Are you thinking that she's getting a winner's edit, quote unquote, here?
Well, I mean, she did get that extended sequence of victory of starting a fire, and then the emotion that goes after that. The problem with considering that a winner's edit is Zeke also got that also, and I don't think there's 2 winners this season. So
Adam also has cried on camera this season. So
I know. So we got to look at our crying tears. But as the world's most foremost proponent of Edgic, what would you think that means?
I think it means that Michaela's a fan favorite, and that's how they're editing her that way. I think she's a contender. I don't think she's going to win. I think she's someone who they expect people to like a lot because she's a lot of fun.
And she's awesome.
Right. So they're giving her, the fan favorite edit.
Is there a reason why you don't think she's going to win?
No, I just think there's other people who I think I might have slightly ahead of her at the moment.
Because I'd say something from this episode that might be a tell of what would prevent Michaela from winning is she's not very good at hiding disappointment in situations, as evidenced by when she gets her green buff and just disgustedly throws it on the ground.
And I love Probst calling her out on that. He's like, Michaela, you don't seem very happy here. And she's like, hell no. Why would I be happy? I'm going to a camp at no shelter. I got to work now? What's this? Like, come on now.
Yeah, and that's often people are like, oh no, Probst is blowing up her spot. No, he's trying to extend the moment for greater TV, and she delivered. Because she's not going to be the shrinking violet. Oh no, I mean, it just wasn't a thing, Jeff. No, she's going to tell you what she thinks, and they know that because that's why they cast her. Because she'll tell you what she thinks, and she'll say it in a funny way.
And you know who the last person to express such disgust at being swapped into a third tribe was?
Somebody who also got a winner's edit. Oh, look at that. We already have a guest appearance.
Hello.
Are you just saying a quick hello, Captain? Do you want to come over here for a second? I know Emily looks a lot different this week. Do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi.
Hi.
This is my friend Matt. Can you say hi, Matt?
Hi, Matt.
Aw, thanks.
So, who do you think is going to win Survivor this time? Last time you said Superman. Still Superman? Yeah, I mean, I honestly think you nailed it. People look for ways to say that Superman's not going to win contest because it's boring, but it's true. He can do everything. His superpower is all the powers.
Right.
Are you going to go to sleep now, buddy? Okay. You guys say good night?
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, the timing doesn't work. We were setting up such a beautiful, wonderful joke.
I know.
That is the last person to be that disgusted about a swap was Andrew Savage.
Right. And everyone loved him for his reaction, didn't they?
Absolutely. Him and Michaela are the same. If people are like, oh, it's Savage-esque, and we love them.
Right.
Oh, okay, it looks like I got one more here. Just 1 second. All right.
This is live TV here,
yes,
folks.
It is.
Live
people
TV.
Are like, all right, we did it. We get the overkill. You have kids. This is the one that never shows up for these things because he actually goes to sleep on time. But I think he was feeling jealous of his little brother. Do you want to say hi, Alex?
Hi.
Hi.
So this is my friend Matt. He is in Philadelphia. That is a city in the United States with a terrible basketball team.
It's a really bad basketball team. It's almost as it's slightly worse.
Almost? It is worse.
2 years ago, you guys were worse.
All right, so you're on YouTube right now, Alex. So I think the only thing that would be appropriate is for us to either unbox toys or discuss video games. That's what YouTube is for, right? Good night, buddy. All right. See? The 3-year-old's got no shame. The 7-year-old's like, I've made a huge mistake.
7-year-old's like, I just opened myself up to dad jokes. What did I just do here?
Yes, he's starting to cross the threshold of finding me less godlike and more embarrassing. It's a nice change of pace there. But yeah, who even knows what we were talking about before? Let's
You're making a very extended Andrew Savage joke that was interrupted.
Yeah, I think my kids knew it wasn't worth the trouble. They're like, let's save him. But yeah, I mean, so obviously she has that great moment when she gets moved over there. Even better moment with the fire, and then she destroyed. Speaking of great basketball,
Right.
which we weren't. We were talking about terrible basketball. She killed it, and that's the second time she's beasted a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had, like Ann and Chris, messing it up on their teams, and Michaela was just sinking them one after another.
That's right. Kind of showing the boys what to do. And I think that this could mean, if you're going back to edit and why you think, these are positive things, but not necessarily winner. It's not hard to fathom Jeff Probst falling in love with a challenge beast who gives him great material in interviews.
Right. And it's also hard. It's not hard to see, everyone has been noticing and commenting on how well she's been doing. It's not hard to imagine them picking her out as a target after the merge when it becomes an individual game.
Right, because and that's actually the fun part of having you on the show rather than John, who would just be like, I don't care, I love her, I don't care about her chances in the game. She doesn't really have people, right? Who's Michaela's people?
It's a good question. I don't know if she has I don't know if she even has a close person. Yeah. She's part of groups, but she's always on. It seems like she's more towards the outside of those groups.
Yeah, we saw Hannah, cheering her on and giving her a hug, but I don't think Michaela is the closest to Hannah. I think Jay and her will get along in this scenario. I think she'll do fine in this part of the game, especially because, as we'll get to, you don't really vote out your weakest members when you're a tribe so thin. Which
you don't vote out your strongest.
Right. Sorry. Yes, you definitely vote out your weakest. Sorry, but yeah, I don't know who her close connections are, and I don't know that she'll be making them here unless she makes a jump to hang with Brett and Sunday. And then once the swap comes, I'm not sure where she's going to fit in. Obviously, plenty of time, but as you say, she might be too threatening for people who are let's get together with Michaela. All right, so. Yeah, we think she's in a good spot in this tribe, and we think she's the best part of this tribe. Let's go to the other side. Are Sunday and Brett doomed here?
Yes.
Good talk. I'm glad we had that.
I mean, okay, no, I should actually say I
think you had the right answer.
No, I don't think they are because I don't think that tribe's going to lose. I honestly don't. I think if they do, then I would say, yeah, sure, probably Sunday goes home, though I could see a case for Brett as well. But I don't think both of them. I don't think the tribe's going to lose twice. I don't think it's going to lose once. So that's why I'd say they're not doomed.
Right. So they just kind of have to ride it out. And you saw a bit of that in this episode. That they just kind of kept their heads down and were helping build, but not bossing anybody around. Yeah. So yeah, maybe if they can just hide enough. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the three tribe thing. You don't need to win. You just need to not lose.
Right. And I think that tribe's good enough that they don't have any weaknesses. And I think they have two people who are really good at challenges in Michaela and Jay. Because, we were talking about Michaela beasting it, but Jay, I think, was also by far the best swimmer. He swam.
He did twice, and he did it faster than Chris, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, and he's been doing well at a bunch of challenges. So they got two very good challenge people in there. So I think they're pretty safe in terms of finishing.
All right, so we did see an idol find again this episode, and we have a new beach and a new tribe. Do we think they have an idol?
Probably, yes.
Yeah, I think that's one thing to think about. I think they absolutely should. It sounds like Angkor had one in Cambodia. They never found it.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't get it, but it sounds like there was one for them.
Right, but that tribe was so miserable, they didn't want to do anything except suffer there. So.
Frankly, I don't even know where they would have hit it in Angkor, right? It sounded like they didn't even have any trees or anything, right?
Right. It was just the desolate rock beach.
Yeah. So it must have been under one of the particularly heavy ones. And that's kind of why, for instance, it didn't come into play this episode is they have to build a shelter and stuff with few people. So there's less opportunity to duck away. But unlike in Cambodia, I do think they were able to get more of it done. because they have one more person. Well, actually, I think they have more than one more. They have one more person than the other tribes, but I believe they might have like 2 more than Angkor had. I think they had 5 people. Oh no, 6. That's how math works. Sorry. They're not as hungry. The weather isn't as hard, so I do think that they might get something together. The nice advantage of building a shelter at this point, if there is any, is that you're not building it for 10 people. It doesn't have to be as big.
Right.
But for these particular people, it kind of sucks because this is probably the 3rd time because the cyclone wiped out anything they built in day 1, right?
Right, yeah. And actually, someone asked me this, like, is there a benefit in building a shelter if you're only expecting to be in a 3-tribe scenario for maybe 2 or 3 boots? I would say yes, because not sleeping for, like, even a couple nights would just wreck you, and then you're sending people home. But what do you think of that? Is there a benefit to building a shelter there?
I don't think so, because I imagine in Survivor, any shelter you build, you're fixing up and rebuilding every few days or so. I don't know if like you set one down on day 3 and that's good until the end of the game. I mean, maybe if you're given a set of tools like in All Stars, even there, I think that was about at this point in time. So but I do think there's probably an advantage of having to build it for 6 people as opposed to
sure.
11.
You can do a lot smaller. Yeah.
Because actually what ends up happening sometimes is they make them do it again. Wouldn't that be cruel? They make them do it again at the merge. Like they find a new beach or they take down all of the stuff. And sometimes they do that in the 3-tribe format to the
worst tribe.
1 because it's like they need, you're going to need to build something bigger now.
Right.
That would suck for these people if they build the shelter a 4th time. I almost want it to happen now.
Yeah, it's like, we just keep tearing down, taking everything away from you this season.
All right, so anything else on that tribe? Basically, how do you think that one's going to shape up? As you say, you just don't think they're going to lose, so it doesn't really
I don't think they're going to lose, but I think if they do, I think the Millennials will stick together there. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. The thing you asked if there's an idol there, I don't even know who on that tribe would be really like searching for an idol. Maybe Hannah, but I don't think Michaela is for sure. I don't think Brett is.
Maybe Will.
Maybe. I don't know. Like,
I mean, who knows? What do we know about Will? That he's barely legal. That's about it, right? And that he sounds like more manly than us.
Right. Yes, that too. But yeah, so and I mean, like, so who would search for it? Maybe Hannah, but I don't really think anyone's going to be a big idol hunter over there. So
yeah. And I think you're right. Of the tribes, I think this is the one that's least likely to break ranks. In part because like the 4 Millennials that are together don't have any beef with each other in the way that it's in the other sense, and nor do Brett and Sunday. So I don't think that this one's going to have a lot of shakeup. So I think what we might end up getting out of stories of them is kind of some more of what we got here. Uplifting survivalist things, and Michaela saying awesome, funny things.
Right. No, and I agree.
Which is enough. I'm okay with that for now. So let's move on to what should be our favorite tribe if you go by branding, and that would be the Purple Tribe. Right. I guess they're called the Cali. We will never call them that. Adam, Figgy, Jessica, Ken, and Taylor.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that might be my favorite of the 3, just because I really like the fact that Figgy and Taylor stayed together for all of the reaction shots that they've been getting. Like Adam just rolling his eyes at Taylor trying to mac on her subtly. And I'm using air quotes here for those listening, not watching, because that was not subtle at all. That was a guy going, why can't I sleep with you right now?
Yeah, and like obviously like, it's probably a dumb question or to get into like how dumb Taylor is, like duh. But man, how dumb is Taylor? Like, and not just like how his insistent it is, but that like it'll never bounce back on us because we have this incredible numbers advantage with the guy we were going to vote out for that I'm sure wants to nothing more than to sign on to be the 3rd wheel and hang outside the shelter while we put a sock up. Like, I do have like no social grace that it's just kind of not cool. It's a group of 3 people to be like, hey, dude, watch us make out a bit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, okay, so how dumb is Taylor? Let's play a game here. Is Taylor dumber than Eric Reichenbach?
Ooh, this is a tough name game here that we're playing. Yes, probably. I really don't like Eric Reichenbach.
I know you do. It's hard for you.
I think he's so stupid, and not just in the game, but on other areas. But Yeah, I'm actually going to say that Eric Reichenbach has Taylor beat.
Okay, what about Jason Siska?
What's tough is that we have gotten more of one or the other, but I'm going to say Jason Siska's dumber than Taylor.
Okay, yeah, I think this is right. Okay, last one, Eddie Fox.
Ooh. So what we don't know about Taylor is his ability to be employed. So I'm going to give Eddie the advantage in smarts because I think, while he's a simple bro, he obviously has learned enough to get through school. And I bet if you got him, like when you get him in those scenarios, like an emergency situation, he'll know his stuff and he'll say it, and then he'll go back to being simple, untroubled Eddie. Whereas I don't think there's like another layer of depth to Taylor anywhere.
I think what you see with Taylor is what you get. And it might not even be that much.
And yeah, what you see is like just always this vacant, half like this open mouth smile with like really twinkly eyes. I'll give it to him. He's got that, but there's just nothing going on there.
Right.
Like what? And like when Figgy is, the chased one, and like, oh no, let's think for a moment here. This is, of course, why we hesitate to ever call them a power alliance.
Right.
Then they're a couple. There's no power there.
Correct.
So Adam is flipping, right?
Oh, absolutely. There is no chance he sticks with them. Are you kidding me? I think of all the people on that Millennial tribe, he was the one that liked them the least.
Yep, he was the one that we saw. And let's go back to our good friend Edgic. No, really quickly, because I'm just doing that because it's fun. There's a difference between reading the edit and Edgic.
Yes.
Which I'm not going to go ahead and paint them as boogeymen. Frankly, hey, let's big them up. That means they're doing even more. But for the edit, we've seen him, obviously, try to get her out in the very first vote. We saw him try to convince Michaela of all the reasons why she should flip and how all the reasons why these two in particular, are a threat. Right. It's going to happen. The only way it doesn't happen is in the scenario discussed before. They just don't lose.
Right. But I think it's going to happen. I think it's been too much build-up to not happen.
Yeah, like, what was the deal of, like, centering the commercial around Will Taylor and Figgy get broken up? Who knows? It's like, do they think there's a demographic, like, that's emotionally invested in that? Go, no, we're not Taylor and Figs,
I am worried that they think it's another, like, Boston Rob and Amber thing that people are rooting for. These two are not Boston Rob and Amber.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you get on Twitter, there are people that are, rooting for it. But, I mean, there's people that root for anything in small enough numbers. But, like, I think the show gets that these people are not to be respected. Like, I don't think they're trying to make us feel that way. Like, they are very much, putting the thumb on the scale of showing every time Taylor's like, what could ever go wrong?
Right. Well, and maybe the reason why that was the commercial was because they didn't want to show us anything after the swap. So This was something we knew about the current dynamics that we knew would be affected some way or another by the swap.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is, like, when we saw it, it was like, I hope so, because this would be great. But I actually think it works better that they're not, and the reasons that you kind of got at.
Oh, yeah. I think it's much better that they're together. I thought it would also be good to be split up and then to see, like, each other, like, not show up one time at Tribal. This is so much better.
Yeah, because, there's no way that they're going to keep their hands to themselves. In fact, the secret scene this week is already them not. They wait for, Ken to leave. Like, is he gone? Is he gone? All right, let's do this. It's like, like, as dumb as it was that they hooked up in the first place, their minds are not anywhere near the game at all. And, like, I get, horniness. Maybe less so in that scenario, but I think they have the advantage of jumping on it right away. Phrasing probably intentional.
Like to the Android Bishop.
Yeah, but now it's just like, no, we're good. And even in Taylor's like bonus scene where he's talking, he's like, what's $1 million? I'm young. That's only so I can do nothing for 10 years. This is for something for longer. It's like, dude, actually, for him, his relationship with Figgy might actually outlast his $1 million. But
yeah, how
generally,
long to keep that million, right?
Yeah,
But then again, do you really expect them to still be together at the reunion?
No, I think they're already done.
Good.
They're certainly not leaking out pictures of themselves. Like Michelle and Nick had more photos of them together, and they weren't actually a couple.
Right.
So, nope.
Sure? No.
So yeah, no, I think that's great. I think Adam is going to flip for sure, and that worked out perfectly. I think this worked out perfectly for him because I do think this is a start of something where he can actually, work in the game instead of just trying to hang on to be seventh millennial, use his idol at the right time. I think he can actually build something real with David and Jessica.
Yeah, you mean Ken and Jessica?
Ken, sure, yes. Later,
You just confused Ken and David.
they're like the same guy.
There could not be two more different people in the game.
Yep, that's right. I'm like one end and the other. Not a single. I think Cece and Ken are closer. David and Ken.
Oh, yes.
Will and Ken. Yep. Okay, you got me. So we opened the episode, with people in this tribe, but not in this tribe. We had that scene with Jessica and Ken. Nighttime. Although some people have theorized maybe this actually is on the Purple Beach and it was just flipped around, which would help make a little more sense why these two are having this discussion. But what do you think about Jessica, giving Ken all the credit and what she had to say about her legacy advantage?
Well, again, I think it's important that it's not important that Jessica necessarily gave Ken the credit. It's important that the show showed us giving Jessica the credit to Ken. Because what that means is that the show thinks this is important to us. It means that the show thinks that this is what matters rather than Jessica may have also said, thank you, David, for the idol play, but the show didn't show us that. And the reason they didn't show us that was because they didn't think it was important. They do think this is important. Yeah,
and people don't have to worry how long-term that is. It's more important because they are currently on a tribe together and David is not. Right. And I also think that for Jessica's part, Ken is the relationship she needed to repair. Because I don't know if you walk away from that tribal council after Ken staring into the deep recesses of your soul for 3 minutes and thinking we're good, right? So I understand that absolutely. And people people are outraged, why? Thank you. What about David? But I think more people are concerned about her spilling the beans on the legacy advantage.
I don't think she actually said everything about it, though. I don't know. I haven't gone back and watched the tape, but it seemed like she said, I have an advantage. It doesn't come into play until this point, but I am willing to use it with you, too.
Yeah, and she said, I would have given it to you. I think so many people are getting hung up. It's like, oh, she told him she's going to give it to him after she gets voted out. It's like, that's not what I saw. Right. And I think, that's the benefit, I have and you had this week of not having to do instant reactions, like getting your takes off right away and then not paying attention. She said she would have done it because she would have realized in that moment that Ken was telling her the truth and he tried to save her. Yeah. But it doesn't mean necessarily when I go next time, I'll give it to you, and I can only give it to you when I go. And I think that's the key part. She did not, from what we saw, tell him that when I get voted out, I will give this to you.
Right, and, let's just be honest here. As much as I love Ken, I don't think he's, the biggest Survivor fan on this season. I don't think he's necessarily parsing this as close as we are. He might not know that if you have a regular idol and you're voted out, you can't just throw it to someone. He might just think that there's, that's a normal thing there.
I honestly think there's a good chance Ken is the least biggest Survivor fan on this tribe on this season. I bet he wasn't watching when he was out bumming around in Hawaii or whatever. But at the same time, I don't think the show cared, nor should they. Here's a quick question that wasn't in the breakdown. If you had to pick one Survivor from the past to be Ken's best bro, who do you think that would be?
Because
it's Andrew Savage, right?
Yeah, actually, it probably would be. They would really get along, actually. Except, here's the problem. Ken likes to be in control. Savage likes to be in control. But Savage got along with Jeremy. and there's a similar dynamic there, and they were like best buds.
Yeah, no, I think Savage likes to be in control, but he's willing to power share a bit as long as you are on his level. You pass his standards, and obviously Ken would. So yeah, I think you and I have successfully ruined Ken for most people.
Yes, I hope that we can all look at Ken right now and just think of Andrew Savage.
Oh, I'm glad we can still troll. And another question out there later is what the declarative post you will be doing this week that will be proven wrong. We have to find that one. You can't force it. You have to find it though.
I haven't found it yet. It'll come to me probably right around merge time. That's usually when it comes. It's just late enough for me to have a strong opinion, but it's still early enough for me to be just dead wrong about everything.
That's right. Yeah, we can't force these things. When the muse hits, it hits. Okay, so let's move on to the tribe that actually lost, and this is where the majority of the plotting of the episode happened. The Orange Tribe. They are called Fadua.
Sure.
Cece, Chris, David, Michelle, and Zeke. That scene between Zeke and Chris bonding, that was pretty cute, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's I had actually forgotten that Zeke was from Oklahoma. So yeah, sure. I mean, if he's from Oklahoma, he's gonna be a Sooners fan.
Yeah, or hate it, right? Like, just be like, an iconoclast is like, why does everybody always like this? But
no, he's gonna be a Sooners fan.
But more like, the people that hate sports ball or whatever, which, there was a possibility that he could be that type, but nope, he's in this. His dad was in Oklahoma. I think he played for Oklahoma or something.
I don't think there's a lot of the hipster I hate sports ball types in Oklahoma.
No, like, he could be the one. Like, he did like, you've seen the way he dresses, right?
He does live in Brooklyn, so.
Yeah, he had to get out of, he was tired of these Okies. He had to be out in Brooklyn and just, But, like, even if he was that now, he would know enough to speak that language, to be that way. And he said that was a strength and advantage he thought would have going in, is that, he has, this middle America background that, helps him talk to different people. And he uses it in his current job. But he wasn't snowing him under. I think he actually is a big fan.
I think he was actually a big fan. Do we remember, was Chris like a big player on that team, or was he just on that team?
I've been thinking he was the quarterback, but now I think that can't be true because he is the quarterback.
Because if it was the national championship team, wasn't that like Wenke or something like that? Or
that's probably right. So yeah, he was on the team, but
Wenke might have been like Florida.
No, wasn't. Yeah, Wenke was Florida State, right?
No. But there was another guy that was like right around that time that I'm confused.
People answer in the comments. Let us know who the quarterback for Oklahoma's. When they won the Sooners national championship. Yeah. Obviously, this is the exact discussion that Survivor fans typically have. But I like that. I like that a lot. What are the odds, though? Right? Like, because these got to be like the only two people from Oklahoma that have ever been on Survivor.
But don't you think they cast it that way, like, because they want like people to be recognized, like. Okay, when they cast like Gary Hogaboom, did they really think like, well, okay, this guy played in the NFL. We want him to be recognized by someone. Let's cast someone who was in sports broadcasting.
Yeah, who's from Kansas where he played college ball. Yeah.
Right. Like I think they want that to happen, so they look for someone to be that person.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they went out there and like had this wild search for like the other Oklahoman. Now it's Clark Kent, apparently, that we have back here. But when they had these things out there, I'm like, oh, that's a perfect match. So this is the time. Because as we've kind of come to know, Survivor casting usually isn't like a one-to-one thing. You kind of make it through a cycle, and sometimes you have to wait a while, particularly since so often they're pushed back for returnees. So, yeah, no, that's a good point that this might not be as coincidental as they thought. Obviously, it's coincidental that they ended up on a tribe of 5 together.
Right, yeah, that's the coincidence part, yeah.
And I like how this was brought up because it started with, like, Michelle, doing the thing, like asking people about themselves, where are people from? And like I say, like, I actually took notice of that. I was like, hey, wow, this kind of reveals what a good social player is. And I think that actually says something about me and what like a socially retarded person I am, that I'm impressed by people asking where you live. But it was for me. It was like, oh, wow. I wouldn't even have thought to ask people that. She's like, where are people from? Oklahoma. And then it starts this bond, about this immediate bond between two people. And she's like, I'm bummed.
Okay. So I actually looked it up. Chris was a tight end and the captain on that team. He was
Both of those things make sense because he is a tall guy.
Yeah, so, he's a big, tall, wide guy too, and tight ends are usually wide. Yeah, so there you go.
I'm glad you were doing that instead of listening to my points. They probably weren't that good.
Listening to your point, and the quarterback was Jason White.
But yeah, so like just. She starts this conversation of where people are from, and then suddenly, she's on the bottom of the list because it's like, oh, there we go. Zeke just saved himself.
Right. No, I mean, but I think that speaks to one of Michelle's strengths, which is that she's the one that reaches out. And this is what we had been talking about. Like, she's the one that starts the conversations, and I think she can start a conversation with really anyone. And I think this is why, people were, I think, kind of impressed by the way she turned that first vote around, well, the only vote until now that she's been in, because she's someone who I think is just comfortable starting conversations. Like Jay had come up to her and was basically like, oh, this is what they decided, and she's like, well, we don't have to do that, let's just start talking to people.
Yeah, she was able to build on the relationship that she had started with Hannah, and so on and so forth. Yeah, no, I think it was small, and obviously it ended up being about Zeke and Chris, but I think that was just a bit of a thing on her strengths, and we're going to talk about her a bit more. So don't want to go too far because I want to talk about what was probably my favorite part of the entire episode, and that was
was it David playing with his balls?
How did we not get Probst doing that? I think he was too dumbfounded by what was happening too to make such the great entendre. Oh my God, him at the challenge! It was. I was belly laughing. I was just laughing out loud. It was so great.
Yeah, I mean, especially once it went off the platform when he got up, I just lost it then. I was like, are you kidding me?
And then when he lost it again, I still wanted it to go. I like him, so there was part of me but there was another part go in the water again. Please, I want it to go in the water again.
And I love Zeke's reaction of just, is he throwing it? Because that was the only explanation for what was happening. Zeke was like, oh, he has to be throwing the challenge here. He can't be this much of a klutz, right?
Yeah. Who could do that? And I watched it again, this afternoon because why wouldn't you? I will watch it again maybe when we hit stop, and it's just so great. It's just this should be what wins them the Emmy that they won't win. Is that how they intercut him flailing around, and then they always keep going back to the other three, the Michelle, Chris, and Zeke in ascending order of height, and they're just like. Oh, what? Yeah, Zeke's comment, and then it was just so great. You could feel they were embarrassed for him. They were nervous. They were like, "Come on!" Right. There's one shot that has them all just dejected, and then him coming bouncing into frame while he's trying to get the ball. It was so fantastic.
I mean, and of course, if you have to consider from their point, perspective, they just watched Cece take forever, with hers because again, she was also insanely slow, and then they're like, okay, Cece's done, Dave would be better than that, and it's he starts off and they're like, okay, well, he's marginally better, and then
he unhooked it, we're good to go.
Yeah, we're good to go, and then just nope.
He screwed up putting the ball in the basket. Yeah. Oh my God, it was
there was one other great part of it, which is that when David first gets on the platform, you can hear Chris say, and they edited it in so you could hear it from the mat. Do you hear him say, "Get ready"? which at the time you don't notice because you don't know what's about to happen.
That wasn't for David. That was for us.
Right.
Get ready for some magic to happen. Oh, I loved it, and they have a bonus scene of David talking about his challenge performance later, and even he can appreciate the hilarity in the situation. Well, totally being mortified, although probably a feeling that he's used to. But he's it was like a cartoon or 1920 silent film. And it's like, that's perfect. Maybe he can write a few good things, because that's what it was. This is an amazing comedy of errors. I can't remember who it was on our site. Otherwise, I'd give them credit. Who said it was like the cell phone scene in BoJack Horseman.
Yes. No, that's exactly what it's like.
So that was amazing. It's in a moment amazing enough that I almost wish that they would have like the Parade of Losers this season, just so that could be David's montage moment.
Unless, of course, David made it that far, in which case it would be ruined, because then you couldn't have it. But imagine if David won this season, and that's on his winner's montage.
Oh my God, even better. Oh, like that's the end. That's the kicker too. Just him reaching out. So, don't never let it be said that we are strict game bots and we can't appreciate the moments. That is all 115 funny moments right there. So that was one half of the David experience. The other half is, of course, him making decisions again. So last week, he plays an idol to save like a non-ally. And this week, he did not play an idol to save an ally. What do you think about that dichotomy?
Well, I think it's okay. I don't think you can actually compare the two directly, because it's very different situations on different tribes. I think at the time he played the idol last week, I think he was trying to build a larger alliance. I think he was trying to draw more people in. As you guys made the point last week, David doesn't bond naturally with people. He's a very awkward guy. He's introverted. He's kind of like bubbly, but in a way that I think turns some people off initially. And so I think he has to give them reasons to start to bond with him. I think, if he gets back together with Jessica and Ken, he'll have some of those reasons. I think while he had probably bonded a little bit with Cece, I don't think they were probably as close as their voting history suggests. I think they were close, but I don't think they were fast and tight. And I think on this tribe, saving CC for this vote doesn't help him long term. It really just makes it 2-2, and you're probably going back again next week because you have David and CC on the tribe.
Yeah, no, some people were asking that. It's like, well, everything's situational. It doesn't have to be like the book on David is he'll always play his idol for the Lions. And I agree. Just because he did it one time doesn't mean you have to do it the other time, and it doesn't mean that him deciding not to do it this time shows the mistake he made last week. One thing that I like to do on this podcast is talk about all the times I'm right, and one thing I was absolutely right about last week was he would have a better chance than anybody to get an idol because he knows how they work this season, and what do you know what happened? But yeah, I don't think you save CC. I think this is the opportunity that was afforded him this week was to be Chris's idol, Chris's ally. And I don't mean like, the fifth vote in Chris's, group. I mean like the guy Chris needs. And that's what he's trying to get. He's trying to get people that are useful to him. And I don't think CC is very useful to him in this scenario.
Right, because next week, let's say they go back to tribal next week. And then, suddenly Chris is like, do I side with, the two millennials, or do I side with David? If I side with the millennials, like they're going to turn on me next. I'm now at the bottom. If I side with David, and Zeke's with me, maybe we can get rid of Michelle, and then I'm at the top of this like little tribe here. And I just think, it's the type of thing where if you look ahead, I don't think David's in trouble on that tribe long term. And if he thinks he is, he has an idol. So like this, I think this is the right move for David.
Just like last week, by playing the idol, he was able to, non-swap, be in a 4-3 advantage, a potential 4-3. Obviously, one of the flaws is you don't actually know if those people are together. This week, if he plays it, he's at 2-2 next week. Like, that's not as advantageous. So I think it works out that way. And I think just the other, to your point, like, if you commit to CC, because here's the thing, he wouldn't have necessarily had to play his idol. What he could have done with Chris is says, nah, let's not vote out CC. Like, Chris did ask for his permission with that move. Right. I think if he had said no, Chris probably still would have moved ahead with the vote out.
Right,
CC
and then David might not have known for sure to play the idol, so it's a little dicey there. But yeah, it's like I think that, you commit to CC, you're going to tribal council again and again. And
So you say you Chris and Cece vote out Michelle this time. You vote out Zeke next time. Well, then time after that, Cece's gonna go because you're losing. No tribe with those, like, as good as Chris is at challenge, he cannot, uplift the ballast that is both
David
Cece and David.
Right. Because, having one person who's bad at challenges is not necessarily fatal. But having two people who are really bad at challenges, and let's be perfectly honest, David and Cece are both really bad at challenges, and we have multiple challenges evidence to prove that can really sink you.
Yeah, and I think, if people want to get into the question why Cece over David, I'm not sure actually anybody ever does. But, to point out the disturbing trend that is this season. Obviously, I think David had an advantage socially that, he's able to connect with Chris and Brett, on day one in a way that she isn't. But I think the other thing is David has at least been willing to do puzzles and then has a reputation like we can have David do puzzles. He hasn't had any success.
Right.
But, at least you in balance in CC and David, it's like, well, maybe David's going to help us with the puzzles. CC's not been doing that at all. And then, they're equally bad in other scenarios. So, if you're just going from a pure, who is our weakest member, I think there's an argument for why it is CC over David. And then, the other thing is I think David has done better socially. But what do you think about Chris deciding to take out somebody in his own tribe anyway? I mean, the Gen Xers came into this already down 2 people. They were the only tribe that had Gen X superiority in numbers, and now not.
I think the problem with saying, how could Chris take out one of his numbers is I don't think Chris has numbers. I don't think he has numbers on this tribe. I don't think he has numbers really anywhere. And the problem with Chris is that he's always going to be a threat in the individual game. Chris is probably already drawing dead. If you're that big a guy, that big a threat in the individual game, you need to get a really rock-solid big alliance around you. And Chris doesn't have that because his, alliance people keep getting taken out.
Yeah, he tried. He absolutely tried. He tried to, this is our big 6 and we're not changing.
Right. But then 2 of them got taken out. And so suddenly it's like, well, I have 4. 4's not getting it done. You need more people, And so it's just, I think he needs to do what he can to stay alive, make new bonds with new people. But I think he's drawing dead. I think he's just already in a bad position.
Yeah, and I think you're at a point. Cece's not his people. Just because she was on a tribe with him before, he was been trying to get her out of that tribe for a while now, and apparently, from her exit interviews, told her in no uncertain terms that she should have been voted out instead of Paul. And thus, I think that he's better off trying to make something new. Make something new with Zeke.
Yes.
He does have that confessional where he's like, I do need some Gen Xers on my side, and David has a connection to them, probably more so than CC does. So, I think it's fine to take out her because, as you say, another way for him to stay around is to not go to tribal council 2 more times.
Right.
Because maybe it's him. They take out Michelle, they take out Zeke. There's proof so far that CC and David are closer to each other than they are to him.
Right. And, and here's the other thing about, for David keeping CC. If you keep her, you're going to have a swap coming up probably back to 2 tribes before the merge. And so then, you don't necessarily know that you're going to protect her. So you're just keeping her for her to be swapped on another tribe and go home then. It's just, she's very hard to drag that far to the merge.
Yeah, and I don't want to make this too complicated. I do think he did some of the mental work of why he needs David, at least, why, it was worth repairing the relationship with David as opposed to just blindsiding both of them. But I also think it's just, he's a committed competitor his entire life, and he couldn't stand losing with 2 people that will cause him to do so. And he had an opportunity to do that. And also the added satisfaction of these people have gotten out a couple of my allies. So, I think that's more the motivation. But I do think, at the very least, his decision to bring David into the fold was, I think that was a good plan.
Yeah, right. And, someone asked on our comments, why would you tell someone if you already have 3-2? And the reason why is to build the bonds going further. If David betrays you there, it's not blowing back on you. It's blowing back on probably Michelle or Zeke. But now you really can't trust David because he's done it 3 times now.
Yeah. And, I think David potentially brings you Jessica and Ken. So yeah, there's value. I think Chris played the right move. To your point, like he can't win. I think if he sticks around at all, well, for one, he can obviously win some challenges once it gets to the individual phase. And I do think he has a very good chance of getting to the individual phase because he'll be very useful on tribes now. Unless to your point, if they get to go back to 2, maybe then people just take him out there because. If it's like last time, 2 was like one goddamn tribal council. It was just like gift wrapping move if they needed that. But the other reason why he could stick around is as a meat shield. But that's not necessarily a successful path to victory.
I think there's other meat shields on this season.
Yeah, but if you're one of those, maybe you'd like.
You might want Chris.
Yes, if you are, say, an even better looking slab of beef.
Like a can?
Like a can. Okay, so where are we at? Okay, so they make the plan. They're gonna target, David and Chris very excitedly tell their newfound millennial friends, and then Michelle goes off and tries to change that. I think there's a lot of people who view her conversation with Cece and her attempt to target David really negatively. Where are you at on that?
It felt kind of like a blunder. And the reason why was not the idea behind it. Like, I get her trying to maybe target David, but it just felt like she did not have a good read on the dynamics. And the one thing that we've been seeing from Michelle that had people high on her from the one time when she hand voted before was the fact that she did have a good read on the dynamics. She did have a good read on what to talk to people about. And here it's like she's talking to Cece about voting out the one person who Cece's closest to. That, it's like that just shows that Michelle did not have a good read this time. And I think
I'll say a couple things in her defense. When she had to make her first move, she had like 7 days worth of evidence because the Cyclone gave her the extra one. Here she had 3. It's not hard to sniff out. But also, she did not have very many options, right?
Right. I mean, right. You could try to be like, hey, let's throw Zeke under the bus. Isn't Chris a a-hole? But no, you need Chris.
Yeah. And she saw, Chris and Zeke bonding over, their shared point of origin. And also, like, it was Chris and, David that brought the plan to her. So I understand. I actually don't mind her approaching Cece.
But here's the thing. If you're going to go after David, why aren't you talking to Chris and Zeke?
I think, her thinking, for one, maybe she had developed a decent relationship with Cece in the past few days. Who knows? Find out if you have a third vote before you try to get that other one. Because I think if Cece was into it, she could probably get Zeke on board, right? Because then it would be more their move than hers. Although, here's another issue, and why she might end up being the person this season who was screwed by the swap, is I don't know how good a relationship she had with Zeke going in, right?
I think she has I think she has a very bad relationship with Zeke, in fact. Well, not bad, but I think just like Adam is the person that Taylor and Figgy probably least wanted to see, or maybe vice versa. I think Zeke and Michelle might be the same there. I think Zeke and Michelle might be the ones that have the least connection.
Yeah, and bonus scene with Zeke this week, he was talking about like how, like, here I am, on the only tribe that the millennials are the minority, with the person who was leading the group that was trying to get rid of me. So yeah, he recognizes that she was the leader. He'd figured that out. So yeah, I think she did as many moves once those Okies were getting together. But I didn't find that she was overly aggressive with Cece. I mean, she laid out the idea that it's David and what was drawing dead, and obviously some of this is influenced by what she tells us in voiceover. She was feeling Cece out. She could tell there was nothing going there, and then she dropped it.
I think that's true.
So it could just be simple. I can't I don't want to just trust that these guys are telling me the truth, because if they aren't, I'm going home. In which case, you need to do what you need to do to not have that happen.
But again, if those guys aren't telling her the truth, she has 3 against her.
Right, but if she can get 1, then maybe you can get 2, right? And the other person would be Zeke, right? I don't know if you can sell Zeke on a plan of like, let's flip this here when he's not the target, but you can. It's like, I have this vote from Cece. She really wants to do this. Let's take control of this tribe.
Right.
So, that's a possibility. But I think where people really come down on her is what she does at Tribal Council.
Yeah, and she doesn't come off well. I mean, like, again, I don't think she came off super well there, but I don't think it's as bad as people making it out. Like, I think the thing is just this. I think Michelle, as a player, I don't think she's going to do too well. I think she's going to probably go home in a swap, maybe next week if this tribe goes again. Because I think she's kind of a natural target next week.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, it's going to be she got swapped in with the wrong people. And so the show has to give you some evidence to why she might go home.
Well, here's a key scene for me that led into that is when David and Chris are telling them the plan, David explicitly says, don't worry, don't pay any attention to anything that's said at Tribal Council. And like that, like he laid it out that we are going to put on this show to blindside Cece. And he did as well. He talked about voting out Michelle. So there's a possibility that whole, her attacking David at Tribal Council was just a continued part of the ruse that was previously discussed. I don't think it was necessarily her trying to get the target on David because she knew where she was voting at that point.
Right, yeah, and here's right, because again, like if someone's attacking you and you don't respond, that smells fishy. So
yeah, and if she says that, well, we're targeting Cece or whatever, then that's not what they're trying to not tell people that they're voting for Cece for whatever reason. It doesn't really need to be a blindside, but the reason why you always blindside people. It's not like David's like, yeah, we don't need to. I got this idol. So I think honestly, that's all that was happening at Tribal Council. Obviously there was a grain of truth in it because she actually did try, but I don't think she was actually going after David in that Tribal Council. I think that was just.
I mean, I think to the extent that she was going after David, it was laying a siege for future tribal councils.
Yeah, which she will need because, I'm a little sad, but I do think she is this season screwed by the swap because I think she's a player. I really think there's something there. I think she's not dynamic television, which is one of the reasons why she's been left out a couple of episodes. Another reason is just because her tribe's been winning up until recently. Well, but I think she can get people to her side when given opportunities. I think this is just a tough spot. If she can get out of it, I think that would prove that she's a great player. But it's just something I've noticed, and just I think there's just a depth to her eyes and the way she's just casually converses with people, and why I've been impressed with her when I see her in the way that I wasn't when I read her. I think that's just kind of has that natural thing that we sometimes talk about with other players that people just feel a certain way when she's around her, but I kind of think she's kind of screwed.
A person who I think she's kind of like in a way is actually kind of like Dawn, because she forms pretty strong social bonds, I think, with people, or she's able to talk to people. It might be that, were she to do well, it would come back and bite her in the end because of all the people she would betray, like it did for Dawn in Caramon. But, I think she's that type of player. Someone who goes out, forms those social bonds, who talks to people. I don't think she's someone that when she's in the majority isn't talking to people. I think she's talking to everyone.
Yeah, and to further to that point, Zeke had pointed out that she's the leader. I think people recognizing what she's doing around camp in a way that might not be revealing to us, because the story so far we got out of there was either Adam trying to claw his way out of the bottom, or Figtails. So
right, don't call them that. They're Failer.
All the names suck because they suck, and I like the idea of choosing the worst one.
You see, I like the one that sounds like Fail.
Ah, there you go.
Or nothing.
Well, speaking of Failer, who are your favorites this season?
Not them. So obviously, Dreamboat Ken. And Michaela, I think, is a big favorite. She's super entertaining. Some of my others, I would say, I'm liking the David experience. He's a weirdo, but he's become an endearing weirdo. The first episode, I was not on board, and he's won me over.
So let's talk about Ken for a minute more. Because obviously we have our jokes about how attractive he is, which obviously aren't jokes; these are stated facts. But he's become a bit of a controversial figure in our community. And I think this is your opportunity to strike back where they can't comment at you. He's not boring, right?
I don't think so. Like, I mean, so here's the thing. If Ken was like what we expected a Ken type to be, everyone would be saying, oh, he's arrogant, he's, domineering, he doesn't respect people. Like, I think I do think N might be a little arrogant, but
Absolutely.
but I also think he actually is respectful of people. I think he is someone who like he's I think what he is this like weird kind of like pseudo philosopher, but like in a way that okay, I'm gonna be honest. If I met Ken in real life and he started going off to me about the wonders of vinyl, I would probably be rolling my eyes so hard they'd be like popping out of my head. But like I feel like this is like an aspect of his personality, and I don't think you see that very often in that type of person. I think it makes him kind of interesting. Knowing his bio, knowing his backstory, I think he actually does have a pretty heartwarming, tale. And I'm not one to have my heart warmed like you. I'm a little robotic, So cold steel is like lukewarm at hearing his tale. So
Yeah, I think he's interesting for some of the reasons we kind of got into. Is that I don't think he's a fan of the show. I don't think he's like versed in all the rules and etiquette of Survivor, and that brings a kind of an interesting tension. And that's what we've saw, and that like he doesn't want to be treated a certain way, and that like he's not going to put aside certain things. But I don't think he's doing it in necessarily like a negative way, in like a hypocrite type way. Partly because he hasn't had the opportunity, right? He hasn't had power in order to be the hypocrite that he certainly could become. But I think that's going to create an interesting tension, and I think it might actually help him in that people will just like him, and they'll trust him more because he'll feel genuine, and what he might feel genuine because he actually might be
right. And I think that's actually why I like him, because he just seems so genuine. I don't think there's like a lot of falseness. I don't think there's a facade to him. Like I think he is what he is, and I think some people react very negatively to that. Like apparently Paul and he were like, oil and water. They did not get along, and I think it's probably because Paul was reading into him something that might not have been there, and because I mean, and I just think that I don't think that when you see him, what you expect to get is what you get. I think for some people that's interesting. For some people that's like, well, I don't care.
Yeah, it's like you don't get to be that guy. And there's also it's just to your point. Like if he's going to go off on these monologues, then yeah, sure, you'd be like, okay, buddy, let's get on with it. But I think like the thing is like it's not necessarily like contrived with him. It's pretentious, sure, yes. But it's real, and to your point, like, would we want to hang out with him every week? Probably not. Just like the guys there, we'd feel inadequate. But as a character type on this show, I think it's interesting, especially in the era that we're in, where everybody, is super fan gamer. That right. I think he's going to be this kind of fly in the ointment, because it's not like he's just laying back and like, who's the best provider and all that. Like he's striving for control of the game and all that sort of thing, but maybe by a different code.
Right. Well, and here's the thing: like, if you're talking about like people in the modern era who aren't, the Superbot gamers, who are like authentic, real people, like it's like you have you have some people that are kind of like the Keith Nail types, and I found Keith Nail very entertaining. I was glad Keith was on a season, but Keith wasn't trying to control the game. Keith was a number. Ken's trying to play the game. It's just he's not like your game bot type. So it's kind of interesting to see that happen again.
Yeah, and it's like it's weird to see like an alpha male who's like working to make like real like connections with women, for instance.
Right.
And again, some of it is because he's been desperate, right? Like if he could have broke down with everybody else, maybe he would have. Except that you kind of see that he's not comfortable in that environment necessarily. He's the one reaching out to the outcast, and I find that interesting.
Adam, he's reaching out to David. He was reaching out to Jessica, before, and then on and off there. Like he's not reaching out to the, and Cece, I mean, it's like, he's not reaching out to Chris. He's not reaching out to the big guys here. Like, I feel like if Ken was to gain power, it would be through that Freaks and Geeks alliance that Maury tried to form.
Yeah, and actually, we papered over it because we were like, the answer to is Adam flipping. It's like, yes, but like, how about how he was able to get Adam to flip just like that?
Yeah, again, and this is kind of why I like Ken. Like, there's something about him he approaches someone and he approaches them in kind of a genuine fashion, like, and it wins them over, and it's refreshing, you know.
And I think it's because, his inclination to, pick up the freaks and geeks, as you say, and like in his spare time and as a human being, he like helps homeless people and stuff. And I think it's like, that's how like an Adam will spill the beans right away. And from what we were seeing from that scene, it's not like Ken was reciprocating, Ken didn't say, oh yeah, me too, I was totally on the bottom. And I think it's just that thing. It's like he finds the people who feel out of sorts, and he gives them, something, and it's just like, oh, thank God. Just like, if you're frustrated at your job and then you go out to drinks with some people and you probably shouldn't say anything, but finally it seems like somebody understands and you just start to vent. And I think that's what he's been getting so far, and I think that's what he got with Adam. And I'm interested to see how that develops. So that's one of our faves. My other favorite so far is Zeke. I think he's great.
I was going to mention Zeke. Zeke is, I really love him. I think he's great TV. I think he's a really entertaining person. I think he's another one of those people who's kind of not exactly what you expect. And I like when those people kind of break out of their stereotypes and give us a little spin on them.
Yeah, because he's this Brooklyn hipster from Middle America who can butch it up and challenges if he needs to, but is still like really intelligent and funny. I think Zeke is great fine. And one of the reasons why I brought this question of who your favorites are, one, because you aren't on the podcast, so it's nice change of pace. But also, we thought this season was a bunch of losers, and there's actually a so far at the very least, I think a high percentage of people were interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps that some seasons the people you're interested in are the ones who go out very early. As unfortunate as the trend has been so far with the voting, which is to say we've lost a lot of women of color, the only one that I actually found kind of interesting was Mari.
Yeah, like Rachel might have been interesting from a contrast perspective, which of course is why she was doomed, is that she was so different from the Gen Xers. But other than that, she wasn't interesting. She hasn't been interesting since that.
We got
Cece and Lucy.
I didn't see anything there.
Yeah, I still couldn't tell you a thing about Cece.
No.
Emma had to remind us. I don't know why I correct that. Everybody knows. Hasn't she been applying since season 2? Just a quick note on that. I think at this point, maybe people can help me. This is a research project for somebody. At this point, if somebody's been saying I've been applying for decades, maybe it's a good chance that they suck. And there's a reason why people have been passing on them for like 10 years. Because Dan Foley wasn't a big winner. CC this time, he was another one where it's just like, maybe they're just like, you know what? I can't watch another audition tape. Just put them on. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually what they did with Dan.
Yeah. It's like, this guy will never leave us alone. He's attending live sessions, so as much as he's fans, it's a heartwarming thing. This person finally got on. It's like, maybe you should ask yourself why they hadn't before, because it's not like people get like more interesting or more attractive as the years go by. All right, so I think it's time to predict what's going to happen next week. So last time we only predicted one person because who knew how the tribes were going to shake them up. You got it right. As did our listeners, as did John, who you just seem to be copying all season. This is your chance.
John's been copying me. He just hasn't realized it.
Well, this is your chance to get the first word in. So we are going to predict one per tribe, because who knows who's going to go home, or who's going to lose. But if you have a thought on who's the most likely to go of this group, feel free. Let's start with the tribe that went to tribal council this time.
Michelle. I think it's Michelle this time. I think there's two ways it could happen. The first way is just that now that Chris trusts David, he's more likely to target Michelle. He already bonded about Oklahoma with Zeke. I think Zeke would not go for a tiebreaker there, though we're actually not sure what the tiebreaker is with four in this situation. But again, I don't think he would do it. So I think it would be Michelle in this instance. The other thing is that David could play his idol.
Yeah. I think if they go now, it'll be Michelle. I think if she gets another 3 days, then maybe it can flip around, especially because, at that point it's closer to, a merge or a swap or something like that. So then maybe things change up.
But who's she going to flip it to? Is she going to flip it to Chris? I don't think so. She'd target
I
David.
think she could maybe flip it to Zeke with David's help. Maybe it'd be like
that either. I think.
Oh no, it'd be an amazing play. Like I absolutely. My prediction was also Michelle, but maybe she gets into David's ear about look how close they are. Like if I go, are you really second or are you third? And I don't think it's necessarily hard for anyone, particularly someone we think is actually an evolved social player, to make David a little paranoid. And maybe then an idol is what takes him out. Well, almost unbeknownst to her, right? She makes her play for the one person she can. She thinks she's doomed, and he does what he does.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think that could happen if they go next week. So I agree with Michelle. Because, it's hard to see the math working in her favor. All because the two Oklahoma guys are together. Because if you're Chris, as if you don't want to keep the guy who's giving you that nice taste of hero worship, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure Chris has been having a tough time out there. He's been losing people from his alliance, and now he suddenly has this kid looking up to him. He's not throwing that away.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the tribe that you don't think is going to lose at all, the Ikabula. If they do, because it looks like it's a blindfold challenge. Who knows? That's gonna be a toss-up. Yeah, who has blindfold abilities?
I'm going to say it's less who has blindfold abilities. If that tribe loses, it's because someone gets medevaced. In that case, I'll say Hana. I actually almost said her last week because I think there's been something about her edit that's been kind of bothering me. And so I do think that she could be going home soon. I don't think she'd be going home in a normal vote on this tribe. I just don't see that tribe turning on her. So I'm going to say that it's Hana from that tribe, just because I think it's more likely to get a medevac on that tribe than a vote.
Just a quick question that I didn't have there so you can think about it, but who would be the caller from that tribe? Do you get Sunday's Minnesota accent? Do you get Brett's Boston accent? Oh, God. Do you get Hannah just spazzing out and she could never handle that pressure? Is it Michaela just talking smack about people?
I think in the preview they showed Hannah walking around. Because I think
well, I was going to say, her being hurt doesn't necessarily preclude her from being the caller, as the last time that they had the challenge in Fiji would prove.
Right. That is true. That is true. Would it be,
or would it be deep voice Will? Everyone over there.
That would be perfect if it was Will.
But it's I don't sure which one mouse. I think because I think Will, you might want to have him carrying around stuff. I think not Brett because he's the muscle.
Right.
It could be funny hearing Sunday just bark on orders like she's Marge Gunderson.
I mean, I could see it being Michaela. I think Michaela has a loud voice and she's not afraid to tell people stuff, so she'd make sense for me there.
All right. So if that tribe goes. You predict it could be Hannah being medically evac. Yeah. I'm going to go with, it sounds like, on first glance, it looks like Sunday would be the person on the bottom. But I think because this tribe has extra people, because they have athletic people, they might be the tribe that targets the threat versus the challenge, person. And I think it could be Brett. And that could also explain why Brett's been invisible.
No, that would make sense to me, too. I would totally buy Brett going home here.
All right, so here's the tribe I actually think is going to lose. If I had to predict one, it's the last tribe. I do think, and that's,
we are on the page here.
So, obviously we think it's going to be the reckoning of Taylor and Figgy. So then it's just a question of who do you got?
I will say, you said the other tribe might be one that targets the strength. I could see a scenario where they target Taylor here. One of the reasons why is because if you look at the people that are on this tribe, it's Ken, it's Adam, they're people who I think react strongly to personality, especially Ken. And I think I could see him be more bothered by Taylor in the same way that he was bothered by Paul. And in that way, he might want to be, if we're getting rid of them, let's get rid of Taylor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the edit actually might be pushing towards Taylor, and he's the one that's given all of the I'm unstoppable, I could never be defeated type quotes. However, like maybe Figgy isn't saying them. So like if they got to get it from one of them, it's not, doesn't surprise me that Taylor's the one that's overconfident. I'm going to go with
the show prizing the male's emotions about the relationship over a woman's emotions, which is not something they have done in the past. Like when, in Caramoan, when the cool kids, like when the girl, was it Hope that went home first?
I think it was Hope first, yeah.
So when Hope went home first, you didn't have her talking about how great they were. You had the guys talking about how much they liked Hope, and stuff like that. So you have the male perspective on like the relationship rather than both of their perspectives.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Figgy because I've been predicting her every week, and I'd feel really stupid if I went the other way this time and it was her. So for the reason only. But also, I think that she will be targeted as the bigger threat. You say that this might be the one of the threat. I think Figgy is a bigger threat than Taylor. Taylor obviously has some, athleticism, but not necessarily more than any like other people that are out there. He's dumb, as discussed earlier. I think Figgy isn't as dumb. I think she is probably pretty manipulative, and I think in the sense you can see how much she's manipulated Taylor. So I think Adam, who has had a front row seat as closer than even he wants, he will speak. I think Ken and Jessica will give him the opportunity to pick the targets, and he'll pick her.
Right, and I'm gonna be honest. I think it's Figgy too. I just wanted to make the case for Taylor because I do think there's a chance it's Taylor. I don't think they slam dunk Figgy.
So I've got. Do we have the same? No. You have Hannah, and I have Brett.
I have Brett. Yeah.
All right. So let's open the mailbag up. We got questions, obviously, from our awesome readers. Some of these are actually left over from last week, but you guys have been asking evergreen questions, which is great. That's some of the ones we like. We'll start with our friend Barbara Anderson, who had the question of which individual challenge do you think you would do the best in?
So I didn't look up specific challenges. I know what type of challenges I'd probably be good at. I'm pretty good at puzzles. I know this. I've done an escape the room before. I'm the one that they put to solving the really hard 5-piece puzzle, and I did it fairly quickly. So something that ends in a puzzle would be good. And because I'm a small guy who used to wrestle, I have pretty decent balance and upper body strength. So something where I'm hanging from a pole or between the two boards, I could probably last for a while.
Yeah, I mean, there's a question here of do best at and win different things, right? He's like, yeah, I could finish a good solid third in some of these. I think maybe my best opportunity to win would be random chance type challenges.
Yeah.
Flip a board to see if you're the last one on the pyramid. Who knows? Shuffleboard. You never know. I mean, I've never actually curled, but it's in my genetics, I bet.
I bet you'd be a natural at it.
But in reality, if I had to, based on what my actual level of ability, I think I'd do best in memory challenges.
Okay.
Now, probably the best one I would have is the ones I don't do anymore, where Probst tells you a story and you run out. Oh, they did something like that in Cambodia, right? Stephen won that, right?
They did that one there, yeah.
I have a good memory. I know, interestingly, I don't do as much in the play along version at home because I'm not paying attention to Probst when I'm watching. It's like, hey, this is the time I can jot down some notes or something like that. But if I was there, I would be really focused. There's the flip side of, I do as well, not sleeping or eating, but everybody has that same handicap. So memory is the one where I think I could actually do a bit of damage in.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense.
Unlike, say you and John.
Yeah, me and John, not so hot with the short-term memory.
Yeah, some of those you guys will have your little nerdy hacks and stuff of let's take mnemonics or,
I was never a mnemonics person because I used to have a very good long-term memory. So, yeah.
Okay, second question in the mailbag. This is from Ms. Fjordstone. Would you ever like to see a season like the first season again with no idols, no twists, and legitimately letting tribes starve or be reduced to eating rats? Is there anything about that old style of play that is more suspenseful or interesting to you than the current style of play? I'm going to go first because she actually submitted this last week, and I actually gave it a bit of thought. A lot of it is like kind of challenge the premise of the question.
Yes.
I don't think the early seasons are as hard as we remember them to be, especially if we're talking really early. They used to give them supplies to start the season. They had changes of clothes. They were sponsored by Reebok, who gave them like tracksuits and rain clothes and stuff. So, this whole crusty survivor myth that like, oh, the kids these days have it so easy. Obviously, like there's some. Africa was a real slog.
I was about to push back with Africa.
Yeah, Guatemala is really hardcore. I think more in the middle seasons is actually where like they kept pushing the bar a little bit too far, and then they found the equilibrium. Yeah. But the reason why a lot of the older seasons seem more survivor based is because they were edited more survivor based. If you have 42 minutes to fill and the height of strategy is I have my alliance and we'll vote out people not in it, then yeah, they're going to focus more on hey, let's find a rat or something like that. So for that, I just think like I don't really necessarily like they had to get evacuated this season. Like the survival is still there. However, like kind of at the heart of her question, I'm not somebody who is that into the survival elements of the show. I think you need a base level. This show needs to be difficult enough so that it's not Big Brother, right? Like survival, doing things, like having real world concerns is an essential part of the show. I think I don't think that we've actually removed that. I think the show has found that balance of like how much can we push them until it's no longer entertaining, because there's I was going to research the name, but there's that pyramid of needs that human beings have, and until you take care of one need, you can't really worry about the other.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, there you go. And if you push them so hard that all they're focused on is food and shelter, then you don't have good television. And if that's the sort of thing you're into, there is actually other television shows for that. You can see Bear Grylls or whatever do his thing. So no. But the other thing is, it's just like you can't recapture the magic again. That first season has a certain kind of magic, and that's because it was fresh and new. And now whether it's generations of fans not, even if they wanted to go out and find a bunch of people who never or barely ever watched Survivor, we're living in a world where people grew up on reality television, and it's just different. Those people in the early seasons just didn't know, and that was what was exciting and refreshing about it, and you're just not going to get that again.
Yeah, I mean, so, the question asked, like, is there anything about the old style play that is more suspenseful or interesting? Like, the thing is, I love some of those early seasons. There are seasons, before The Idol was introduced that are among my favorite seasons. Pearl Islands is one of the best seasons there is. Amazon is a fantastic season. There are these early seasons that are great. I don't think they're necessarily great because they lack these things. I think they're great because they had great casting, and they had, and the casting yielded interesting narratives within that season. I don't think that the harder core version of Survivor, I don't ever want to see a Survivor Africa again. My distaste for Africa, for longtime listeners, is well known. When we were ranking seasons, I was the one that came on to bash Africa, because Africa's the season where they just lay around because they had nothing. They couldn't go anywhere. And it's a great cast that's wasted because they couldn't do anything. I don't want to see that again. I feel, we talk about how Survivor is not that hard anymore. Cambodia was brutal.
We had 3 people exit the season previous to this.
Right. And last season, we had someone almost die, because of heat stroke. Like, this is, this game is not as easy, as people make it out. It's just that we don't focus on that. And we don't focus on that because one of the changes that's happened over the course of the show is that people have developed strategy. And the show has recognized that strategy is interesting. You're never going to get a Borneo again, and it's not because the show isn't going to do a season where the elements are that tough. It's because you're never going to get that many people who know nothing about Survivor, who don't know how to play, and who haven't figured out the most basic things like an alliance. So, if you're saying, why can't we get a Born New again? It's because you can only have a first time once.
Yeah, it's like relationships, it's super exciting, and when it's new, everything's all fresh and new. But eventually, that gets deeper, and sometimes I think back and it's like, oh, it was so fun when I was young and falling in love, sure, but it was been replaced with something deeper and more meaningful, and that's Survivor now. I
just went shoop.
Well, I'll tell you. I promise you, it'll happen. But yeah, it's not fresh and exciting. I know a lot of the beats. Getting back to a question we had last week from some other guy about is the editing all the same. It's a little familiar to us in some ways, but then that allows for a depth of conversation and feeling. Would a season like that be interesting? Probably not, because the way I consume Survivor now is talk about it with obsessively with 30 other people on the internet and then do a show about it. And if it was, I couldn't do that for Borneo. You would run out of material. There's only so much debate you can have over whether these people were right to try and eat something new for the first time. Right. So I get the feeling, because it was magical back then, and I do think a lot of early seasons are actually underrated by modern fans. I sometimes pull out my teeth not teeth, I keep my teeth. They're good. Hair. When like the rest of you never give Australia the credit that it deserves. It's like, you guys need to watch that season. It is fantastic. But
are you saying that we're going to watch Australia sometime? Because maybe that's what we have to do.
It's possible. But yeah, it's just all you can have is the memories. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle. Because, what happens when you cast a bunch of people that don't know Survivor trying to recapture that magic? You get San Juan del Sur, so I don't want that.
Right. I will say that if there's a season from the middle on that's kind of the most back to old school Survivor, it's probably Tocantins. Yeah. Tocantins, there's no swap. There is an idol, but it's actually like pretty, it's pretty.
They're both pretty much ineffective, right? One isn't really, one goes home with Brendan, and the other just sits with JT, I believe. Or is it Steven?
I don't remember. They didn't play it either way.
Yeah.
And then you have Exile Island, but that's just, I think it's less important there than it is in some seasons, despite the Exile Alliance, which never really came to anything. And I think that season played it pretty straight, and I think, and look, that's a really entertaining season. They just added a few of the modern Survivor things in.
Yeah, and I think also what happens if you try to strip out everything, take out your idols, take out swaps or whatever, is people know what to do. Like even the neophytes, like Cece would know what to do in that scenario. These things, they had to introduce these levels of things to keep the players on their toes. And we did a series of 30 things that changed Survivor. And that's kind of the counter moves and of these things is like, the show needs to stay ahead of the survivors, and every once in a while, the survivors prove that they've figured something out. Auctions don't work anymore, right. That sort of thing. So change is it just happens, and it's wistful to look back, but we can't make Survivor great again in that way. I know I shouldn't have done it. Halfway through. All right. Thank you for the question, though. Mailbag question 3. This one's coming from Diego Armando. What gimmick would you like to see Survivor try in a future season, or what one would you like to see them try again? And then he doesn't want us to say all winners because I've always said all winners. I'll let you go first on this one.
Okay, so I don't have a new gimmick. I wasn't creative enough to think of that. But one gimmick I would like them to try again is I would like them to try the what they did in Fiji. And before you say, wait, you want them to do haves versus have-nots? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the unspoken gimmick they did in Fiji, which is they cast for a racially balanced season, and they didn't call it Race Wars. They did the same thing they did in Cook Islands. I'm sure that longtime listeners know this. They wanted to prove that, yes, we can cast this with the same racial balance that we use in Cook Islands and not engender a furor, or make it like a, it's like, oh, we're only doing this for the ratings. They didn't advertise it that way. They didn't market it that way. But what it yielded, I want to see a cast like that again. This current season's actually had a lot of minorities. It's just that they've been going home. But I feel like that's something that yielded very interesting dynamics. I feel like it yielded an interesting winner, and I think if you look at Cook Islands, if you look at Fiji, if you look at the alliances that formed there, you saw minorities able to be in positions of leadership that they're almost never able to be in because they're surrounded by white people.
Yeah, it's people is the question of the season, and that happens is like racism and Survivor, and it's just not that simple. It's just that it's tokens don't work because people gravitate to who they're most like, and as soon as you have enough people of one type, you control Survivor. That's just basic. So right. To your point, in Fiji, there was no tokenism. It was right. Everybody was on solid footing, so then it became not the thing. And for a season that was cast that way, I don't know how often race was a factor. Obviously, it wasn't the final tribal council for one question. But for the gameplay,
I mean, if you look at the final three, it was very much a factor because those three had a bond that, so I think it's just something that, a racially balanced season. They did it twice now where they had, the four, races that they choose, which is white people, Hispanic people, black people, and Asian people. They had two seasons where there was 5 of each, though in Fiji there was one less because one person got removed right beforehand. And I just feel that it yielded different stories than the type that we've been getting in recent seasons where the person of color always goes home first.
So kind of all in that thread, because I guess, we're just these lefty Marxists here.
Lefty Marxists.
I'm ready for another battle of the sexes. Okay. We obviously had one within One World, but One World I think was marred. It was too much in one. It was too much in one thing. Is this One World or is this men versus women? I think it's time for just a men versus women season, and I think we are better equipped to talk about it and to take it in. I think they would edit it in a more interesting way than maybe they try and like in Vanuatu or something like that, or even like Amazon where it's about young people and their hormones. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's kind of a thing in the news right now about women and the way that men treat them. And if we're going to have, if you are going to have a female leader, I think it would be interesting again because just the same point. Minorities are targeted first, and women are targeted first, and the question of what the sexism inherent in Survivor, and there's some to that, by the fact that they don't have a lot of women in positions of power behind the scene, but a lot of it is also just the sexism dynamics in our when you build a new society, all of a sudden one type of strength is favored over another. That's not a thing in Battle of the Sexes, and that's when women actually get to lead alliances without having to, placate men. And and then you also get interesting dynamics in the men's side of are they, it's going to be this whole battle of what masculinity is, or what they can reform it. And I think that would be interesting, and maybe it's also because I happen to write and podcast for a website that has a lot of people interested in that. So this show is equipped to talk about that, and the people that we talk about would be far more would be interested in that sort of thing.
Right.
So that was my answer. I also didn't have a new one, but I think I think it might be time to try that. And I will say I don't want it as a returnee season. Returnee seasons don't really need gimmicks other than maybe casting. Your gimmick is a bunch of people who know how to play Survivor are back. But for newbies, I wouldn't mind seeing that again.
No, and I think it's a good one. And actually, you remind me of something, which is that I actually thought the One World idea was an interesting idea. As you said, it got too married to the Battle of the Sexes there, and I kind of understand why they did that, so that we could tell who was on which tribe, because in the game it's very hard to do so if they're all on the same beach. But I like the idea of everyone being on the same beach and interacting with each other in the early game rather than only seeing each other during challenges. I thought that had some promise. I don't know if it would actually ever be more interesting than what we got. Maybe it wouldn't, but I thought that was an interesting idea.
Yeah, no, I think, and other people have discussed this, you just be really diligent from a production standpoint of color blocking.
Yes.
Everybody, you wear these colors. And then at swap, give them new stuff to wear. I don't care. Like, everybody brings one set of each. And then I think that would be enough for enough viewers. And then, because I think what they were going for in One World is, like, let's see how the lines blur. And let's see if we can, shake up that dynamic. But then when you also make it battle the sexes, it's like you're betraying your entire gender for,
right. And
to do this.
And they still made them build two tribes, and they still made it so they couldn't, like, share anything. Like, it would be interesting if they were really just in one camp, but they just had this arbitrary boundary that only came up during challenges. That would be because then you have no, it's like, would they naturally fracture anyway, or would they be interacting, or what would be happening there? I don't know.
What do you think of the idea that some people have of just one tribe, and then,
That I don't like. I don't like the idea of one tribe. It turns it into, I think, the fact that the show holds off on the individual game for a while, I think, does a good job of usually getting out kind of the dead weight from a show perspective. And, I hate to call anyone dead weight, but even the show knows they cast some people that are not going to pop on TV because they're just casting to fill a role. And while they try to get everyone good, some people don't come off that way. And the pre-merge usually does a good job of getting rid of them. Doesn't get, not always. There's definitely been seasons where I'm like, oh, all the people the show didn't want to last have lasted, and all the people the show did want to last have gone home early. But and so that's why when you go to an individual game, I think there's a lot of interesting people that'd be going home way too early, and I think you're going to wind up with a very dull end. Yeah,
but like you could do it that like it's one tribe, but then every challenge is let's see who the teams are. But it'd be very different. I think that'd be one of those things that's too different. As related to before, there is a bit of a comforting structure to Survivor because it'd be like Michelle and Fiji every week. Just like I've created this whole scenario. Like as fun as it is to see people screwed by the swap, it'd be like every week. Like
Right.
You can only build so many alliances. It would be really exciting for that one person that somehow has fingers in every dike. Wow, phrasing. But I also think that's probably a bridge too far. All right. Anything else on the episode?
Nothing else from the episode, but yesterday was Mark's birthday, so happy birthday, Mark.
Yeah, I think people. This is good because I'm glad you were able to say that, so they know that you are not Mark.
I am not Mark. I am not Mark.
Well, how dare we cast two four-letter name dudes that start with the first two? But as many of you know, Mark is also a member of our group here. He did the live blog for you this week. He will be doing it again next week because you have some terrible basketball to watch.
Yes, I have a Sixers game to go to.
Yeah, but he, among his duties, is he's the graphic designer of our site. It was unusual for us to bring in somebody with legitimate talent. But, I often say that, like, the best feature of our site is the community that's built around it. That is absolutely true. But I think another reason why, that we achieve some level of validity amongst there is that I think our stuff looks, legitimate. And I think that's Mark. That is a big part of that. Because I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but there are other Survivor fan sites out there and the varying levels of quality of their visual presentation, we'll say. Yeah. And as that's just another interesting little note about Mark, is we are not the only prominent Survivor podcast that he has done graphic design for. We're just the only one that's never paid him. So that's a little note. But thank you for everything you do around here, Mark. And also, happy birthday. Also, the happy birthday thing isn't going to become a weekly thing. It's just,
Just get ready for it next week, too. Is that what you're saying?
All right. So, as I said, Mark did the live blog. He'll be doing it next week, and that is on our website, which you can find at www.purplerockpodcast.com. You can find our fantasy game there. You can usually find Matt doing live blogs there. Other blogs, predictions, the whole thing. So you probably know that, but if you don't, you should really check it out because it's a great place to visit and hang out. On Twitter, you can contact the site or follow it at Purple Rock Pod. I am Purple Rock Andy, and tell everybody why they should follow you on Twitter.
because I actually did live tweet the episode this week because I couldn't live blog it. So when I do watch, I will do that when I'm not live blogging. Otherwise,
where can I find you?
Purple Rock Matt.
All right. If you'd like to help out the show, to help offset some of the costs that come with having such a thing, you can buy things on Amazon, and we will get tiny percentages of your purchase. And that's go to our website, click on the link, or go to purplerockpodcast.com/Amazon. And you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. Actually, quick note about the website. We've kind of changed it a bit.
So let us know what you think of the update.
Yeah, if you like the new design, if there's things that you don't like about it, honestly, keep that to yourself. Just give us some praise. We work hard, damn it. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. If you're listening, I'm going to play a little bit of music right now. If you're watching, bye.